Ayana, a young girl, lived in a small, tranquil African village surrounded by vast open fields and ancient trees. Everyone who knew her praised her goodness, insight above her years, and unwavering spirit. However, Ayana's life had not been simple. When Ayana was a tiny child, her mother became ill and died, leaving only memories and empty gaps in her heart. Her father, overcome with sadness, eventually remarried, attempting to bring warmth back into their lonely home. His new wife arrived with her own daughter, Zuwena, a girl whose eyes appeared to measure and evaluate. At first, Ayana hoped that the change would be beneficial. She imagined a new family, laughter in the corridors, and a sister to spend her days with. But fantasies are frail, and reality was often far colder. Ayana's life changed after Zuwena and her mother moved in. The kindness she had known became uncommon. Her days were filled with many activities, such as cooking over scorching fires, collecting heavy buckets of water, sweeping dusty floors, and cleaning every area of the house. Meanwhile, Zuwena lounged in colorful gowns, laughing and resting, never raising a hand to help. Still, Ayana did not say anything, not even when her small hands grew calloused or her feet hurt from sprinting back and forth all day. She knew deep down that patience was a seed that will one day blossom into something lovely. The locals frequently watched her as she worked. Old ladies whispered prayers for her strength. Fathers nodded respectfully as she passed, balancing large baskets on her head with quiet ease. Children occasionally followed her, captivated to her compassionate demeanor and loving smile. To them, Ayana was a beacon of light, a reminder that even when life was unfair, goodness could prevail. But within her small heart, there was a secret hunger, a yearning for friendship and belonging rather than for food or riches. She wished someone would sit with her and say, "You are enough." She hoped for a mother's hand stroking her hair and a sister's arm wrapping around her shoulders without asking anything in exchange. However, night after night, Ayana folded her hopes like hidden letters and tucked them away. She wiped away her exhausted tears before anyone could notice. She muttered to the sky, convincing herself that her goodness will eventually return to her. She gathered courage from the broken parts of her days. She tied her dreams together with a delicate thread of hope. She smiled even though it ached. To the outside world, Ayana was the village's crown jewel. But to herself, she was just a girl struggling not to shatter. What she didn't realize was that above the hills and across the rivers, destiny was stirring. Something was coming, something that would put her spirit to the test, the strength of her dreams, and the power that lay concealed within her waiting heart. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but Ayana's story had only just begun. Ayana's presence in the community was peaceful, warming, and full of hope, much like the early light of morning. She brought happiness with her wherever she went. The old men interrupted their labor to meet her. Mothers mumbled blessings beneath their breath as she passed. Children rushed to her side, hoping for a friendly word or a merry chuckle. Ayana never sought recognition. She didn't dress fancy. She did not brag about her charity. It was simply who she was, pure, selfless, and genuine. However, not everyone praised her shine. Zuwena hid among the admiring faces, watching with tense fists and a bitter heart. Zuwena couldn't understand why Ayana was so popular. They all resided under the same roof. They ate the same foods. However, no one stared at Zuwena in the same way they did at Ayana. When Zuwena entered a room, the conversations proceeded uninterrupted. When Ayana walked in, everyone stopped talking, turned around, and lifted their spirits. It was a disparity that stung like 1,000 small thorns pressing against Zuwena's pride. Zuwena first attempted to emulate Ayana. She spoke sweeter, smiled bigger, and dressed to impress, hoping that someone would notice. But no matter how much she polished her beauty or faked her laughter, the villagers' gaze always returned to Ayana, captivated by something deeper, something that no silk or gold could replicate. Zuwena's jealousy gradually turned into something far more terrible. She started whispering. At the market stalls, she raised suspicions by saying, Ayana only helps because she craves admiration. While fetching water from the well, she expressed sadness and said, she thinks she's better than us, you know. She hides it well. Her comments were gentle and laced with full compassion. But, like poison, they seeped into the peasants' hearts. The transformation was gradual but certain. The warm greetings Ayana previously got were colder and shorter. People used to smile openly, but today they conceal their eyes. Whispers trailed her movements like shadows, stealing the sunlight she carried so easily. Ayana noticed. How could she not? The affectionate gaze had turned suspicious. When she approached, the voices that had before welcomed her quieted. Still, Ayana did not say anything. She buried her pain deep within her chest, concealing it beneath her quiet fortitude. She thought it was simply a passing mist, a misunderstanding that would be cleared up with time and truth. But Zuwena wasn't done. She felt no guilt as she witnessed Ayana's silent endurance. Instead, a terrible satisfaction grew inside her. She realized that by slightly distorting the facts, she might dim Ayana's radiance without ever raising a hand. And so she whispered louder and braver, reinforcing the peasants' doubts with well-crafted lies. Each word is another thread in a building web designed to trap Ayana. Ayana, oblivious of the depth of the betrayal, continued to work and smile, never realizing that a much greater darkness was brewing just beyond the edge of her universe. A gloom born not from strangers, but from the sister she once desired to love. Zuwena sat fuming by the fire one night, while the rest of the town slept beneath the stars. Her heart, which had already hardened from jealousy, was now boiling with uncontrollable rage. Her mother approached, observing her frantic pacing and clenched fists. She spoke in low tones, heavy with old secrets, about a tradition passed down through centuries. Deep in the bush, she whispered, is a location called the Lake of Change. Its waters are forceful. If the lake accepts you, blessings will follow. But if not, curses are all that remains. Zuwena listened, her eyes shining with a sinister glow, and thoughts so evil and exquisite began to blossom within her. If Ayana could be fooled into drinking from the cursed waters, her beauty would be lost. Her charm, grace, and everything the hamlet valued will vanish like smoke. Zuwena would no longer be shrouded in her shadow. She would finally shine alone. But Zuwena recognized Ayana's heart. She knew Ayana would never follow her into the bush without a reason. She needed to be clever. She needed to be sweet. For the first time in her life, Zuena's words were sweetened with honey. She approached Ayana the next day with a big smile on her face. "Sister," she whispered softly and warmly, "I discovered something magical. A lake that benefits individuals who have pure souls. Imagine what it may bring us: peace, prosperity, and pleasure." Ayana blinked in amazement. Zuena had never addressed her so nicely before. For a brief time, hope lit in her chest, like if her sister suddenly cared. Torn between caution and a strong want for family, Ayana nodded hesitantly. "If you truly want this," she said quietly, "then I will go with you." Zuena concealed her smile, concealing her triumph with a look of eagerness. Before dawn, the two sisters slipped silently out of the village. The early mist clung to their feet as they walked across fields and through tiny roads. The jungle loomed ahead, untamed, dense, and alive with the secret language of unseen creatures. Vines draped from tall branches, and each step forward felt like entering the unknown. Zuena proceeded with confident, steady strides, having memorized the road from her mother's stories. Ayana followed close after, her pulse hammering, unsure whether she was filled with fear or joy. Strange noises echoed through the trees, including faint rustles, distant howling, and the creaking of unseen branches. The deeper they went, the denser the air grew, laden with the aroma of moist dirt and ancient secrets. Zuena reassured Ayana when doubts arose, saying, "Trust me, sister, we are almost there." The woodland eventually opened into a little meadow where a lake lay so motionless that it resembled a mirror dropped from the sky. Its surface shimmered in the weak morning light, both beautiful and frightening. Ayana watched in wonder, filled with both awe and anxiety. She turned to face Zuena, who was wearing a mask of gentle encouragement. "Go ahead, sister," Zuena said, her voice velvety. "Drink first. You deserve this blessing." Ayana knelt by the water's edge, not realizing that betrayal was only a breath away. The sun began to slowly rise over the far hills, throwing a golden glow across the world. The lake of change shimmered in its radiance, so still and flawless that it appeared almost surreal. Standing at the edge of the lake, Zuena smiled at Ayana, concealing her actual intentions. She spoke with a phony warmth, saying, "Go ahead, sister. Drink first. Your heart is pure. The lake will certainly bless you." Ayana, ever trusting and eager, knelt down without hesitation. She cupped her hands and leaned over the smooth surface to scoop up the glittering water. The early air felt chilly against her skin. The aroma of damp earth invaded her nostrils. She could sense the enchantment in the air, a slight hum that was almost like a song. But as soon as her fingertips reached the water and she bent forward to take a sip, a strong force struck her back. Zuena had shoved her hard and mercilessly. Ayana gasped as she tumbled forward and plunged into the lake's chilly embrace. The water, which had appeared so tranquil, became heavy, thick, and nearly alive. It wrapped around her like chains, drawing her down and sucking the air from her lungs. For a few terrible moments, everything was dark. The globe above appeared unimaginably far away. With a desperate kick, Ayana broke the surface. Coughing and gasping for breath, she wiped the water from her eyes and stumbled to the shore, shivering. However, when she glanced down into the water again, expecting to see her own reflection, she discovered nothing. No face grinned back, no eyes, no mouth, and no features. Only the empty surface looked at her, cold and uncaring. Her heart pumped frantically. Confusion turned to dread as she touched her face with shaking hands, feeling everything in place but seeing nothing. Zuena stood on the shore, watching. With a devilish grin, she crossed her arms and exclaimed, "Let's see how special you are now." Her laughter rang through the trees, harsh and nasty, stabbing deeper than any knife. Ayana fell back in shock, her mind racing. The sister she had trusted, the one she hoped would adore her, had betrayed her in the most brutal way. Tears mixed with the water that dripped from her hair as she backed away from the cursed lake. The jungle loomed behind her, dark, enormous, and mysterious. However, there was no choice. Ayana, broken in body and spirit, turned and ran into the dense forests, vanishing into the shadows without saying farewell. Meanwhile, Zuena dusted the dust off her hands and smiled to herself. She made her way back towards the settlement, meticulously practicing her lies. When she arrived, she collapsed to her knees before the villagers. With trembling lips and phony tears, she cried, "Spirits snatched her. I tried to save her, but she was lost in the water." The peasants, overcome with fear and despair, believed every word. So, under the same sun that had previously warmed Ayana's bright future, the world turned chilly on her. Far away, deep in the woods, a broken girl wandered, abandoned, invisible, betrayed. The jungle extended forever around Ayana, a tangled maze of trees and darkness. Days faded into nights, and nights turned into darker days. The heavy canopy above covered even the smallest views of the sun, leaving her alone in a world of eternal twilight. Her body weakened with each stride. Her once strong hope dissipated like smoke in the wind. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, and loneliness pressed hard at her heart. Still, something within Ayana refused to give up. One nightfall, when even her breath felt too heavy to carry, she came across a little clearing deep within the forest. In the center stood a crooked cabin, its walls made of vines and aged wood, while smoke curled softly from a fire outside. An old woman sat beside the fire. Her skin was thick and wrinkled, like the oldest tree bark, and a faded robe hid her blind eyes. However, as she lifted her head, it felt as if she could look right into Ayana's soul. The woman shouted out, "Come closer, child. You're not lost. You're expected." Ayana, too tired to question, collapsed to her knees near the fire. The warmth of the flames touched her chilled flesh, chasing away the shivering that had plagued her for days. The woman introduced herself as Mama Ife. Her voice was quiet yet strong, making Ayana feel protected for the first time in what seemed like forever. Mama Ife lovingly touched Ayana's forehead and whispered, "The lake took something valuable from you, but it did not leave you empty. It gave you a gift which you have yet to understand." Ayana, confused and devastated, listened. Mama Ife stated that the lake had removed her reflection, but it had also revealed a deeper power within her. Many would fear this power, but only a few could master it. Ayana soon noticed something weird. When Mama Ife talked, her words were layered. The surface was pleasant, yet beneath there was a river of pure truth. It was then when Ayana realized she could hear the true meaning behind every word said to her. She could see through any untruth. No fake grins could fool her. The truth, naked and raw, would always reach her ears, whether uttered openly or hidden deep within someone's heart. Initially, the realization was horrifying. How could she live in a world when lying was prevalent? Mama Ife, wise and patient, smiled and told the child that beauty passes, lies disintegrate, but the truth shapes destiny. She taught Ayana that true power lay not in how the world perceived her looks, but in her ability to see past the world's illusions. Ayana's scars, which were once emblems of betrayal and grief, now had a deeper meaning. They marked her survival, awakening, and rebirth. Ayana experienced a sense of unbreakable strength when sitting by the fire in the wilderness. She knew she wasn't going to lurk in the shadows. She refused to bend her head in shame. She would rise, stronger, wiser, and prepared to confront whatever awaited her beyond the jungle. Her journey was far from completed. It was merely the beginning. The sun sunk low behind the hills, illuminating the sky in flaming orange and gold. Villagers concluded their day's labor and prepared to relax into the gentle buzz of evening life. But then, from the dusty fringe of the settlement, a lone figure emerged, wrapped in a plain, ragged coat. The visitor went carefully, each stride firm and unshaken. Whispers circulated quickly through the audience. Old men lowered their gaze. Young women covered their mouths in surprise, and toddlers looked from behind doorways. As the figure approached, the truth became clear. It was Ayana, alive, changed. She shone not with outward beauty, but with a fiery strength that seemed to illuminate the very ground she walked upon. Zuena, standing among the villagers, felt her heart tighten into a knot. Her hands trembled. Her mouth became dry. This was not the broken girl she had discarded. This was someone else entirely, someone with stormy eyes. Ayana rushed to the center of the crowd without hesitation. She pushed her hood aside, exposing the wounds she no longer sought to conceal. The peasants gasped again, but not in dread. There was something compelling about her presence that demanded respect. Ayana raised her head and spoke. Her voice was clear and steady, full of quiet fury. "A person's beauty lives in their truth," she told me. "Tonight, the truth will speak." Their words lingered in the air, weighty and electrifying. Nobody dared to move. Zuena forced a grin on her face and stepped forward fast. "Sister," she exclaimed, "you've returned. We mourned you. We thought the ghost had snatched you." But as she spoke, something unusual happened. Another voice, raw and cruel, repeated her words, one that no one else had heard before. Zuwena's buried thoughts spilt out like water from a broken jar. I deceived them. I betrayed her. They must not be aware. The villagers gasped and looked around in uncertainty. Had they really heard that? Zuwena's face turned pale as she realized her inner voice was no longer a secret. She tried again, stammering, I missed you every day. But once more, the truth rang out louder and clearer than her lies. I didn't care. I wanted her gone. I wanted it all for myself. The audience recoiled. Eyes that had previously looked at Zuwena with kindness were now filled with betrayal and disbelief. The villagers, one by one, turned away from her. Whispers escalated into heated grumbling. The weight of her deception grew heavier with each breath she took. Zuwena fell backwards, her falsehoods tumbling around her like falling stones. With nowhere else to go and no more stories to tell, she broke into a frenzied dash, escaping into the dark arms of the jungle, devoured by the exact wildness she had previously used as a weapon. Ayana stood silently in the middle of the town, her heart steady and her soul unshakable. She hadn't come for vengeance. She had come for the truth, and tonight the truth had won. After Zuwena withdrew into the darkness, the hamlet came to a standstill. Nobody spoke, nobody moved. A profound quiet fell over the group, filled with guilt and regret. The peasants, one by one, dropped their heads. The same people who had before doubted Ayana, who had grown chilly as a result of whispered lies, suddenly realized the gravity of their error. The shame weighed heavily on their hearts. An elder walked forward with shaky voice and said, We wronged you, Ayana. We believed something we should have questioned. Please forgive us. Mothers' eyes welled up with tears as they remembered pulling their children away from Ayana's path. Men who had previously ignored her struggled to meet her eyes, but Ayana stood tall. She looked at them with quiet strength that made her glow brighter than any queen's crown. She may have acted out. She may have let fury control her words, but Ayana had journeyed through fire and anguish across the wastelands of treachery and lived. She made a different choice. She spoke softly. Truth and kindness are stronger than lies. I don't hold hatred in my heart. Her words dropped on the audience like a godsend. Old wounds ached. New hope arose. The folks grieved freely now, their pride taken gone. They crowded around her, kneeling in apology and promising never to let darkness dominate their hearts again. Ayana didn't ask for allegiance. She did not demand worship. Instead, she teaches them. She taught them to value honesty over smooth words. She taught them that true beauty was not found on the face, but rather in the soul. She led them by example rather than force. A living, breathing reminder that courage is quiet and forgiveness is strong. The people started to transform. Small kindnesses grew like flowers on the dusty streets. Children learned to speak truthfully and without fear. Neighbors helped one another, no longer turning away when adversity knocked at someone's door. And at the center of it all was Ayana, the girl who had lost her reflection but gained insight into the souls of others. She became more than just a presence in the village. She became a symbol of resilience, a beacon of hope, a reminder that even when falsehoods destroy walls, honesty may restore entire kingdoms. Our sweetest retribution was to never yell from the rooftops. It was not about pursuing justice with a hard hand. Her sweetest retaliation was simply existing, living beautifully, live boldly, living with a heart so bright that no betrayal could ever darken it. Ayana had risen above the storm, and in doing so, she shone brighter than ever before, a silent queen crowned not with gold, but with the unyielding truth within her.